ಪ್ರೀತಿಯ ಗುಬ್ಬಿಯ ನಾಗರಿಕರೇ, ಪೋಷಕರೇ ಮತ್ತು ಆತ್ಮೀಯ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳೇ, ಮುಂದುವರಿಯುವ ಮುನ್ನ ಒಂದು ಕಿರುಪರಿಚಯ. ನನ್ನ ಹೆಸರು ಜೆ ರಾಮನಾಥ್ ಅಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು, ಹಾಗೂ ನನ್ನ ಪತ್ನಿ ಉಮಾ ಕಾತ್ಯಾಯಿನಿಯವರು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಸಂಗಮ್ ಟ್ಯುಟೋರಿಯಲ್ಸ್ನ ಬೋಧಕರಾದಂತಹ ಶ್ರೀ ಶಂಕರ್ ಪ್ರಸಾದ್ SP ಮೇಷ್ಟ್ರು ಇವರ ಅಕ್ಕ. ನಾನು ಮತ್ತು ನನ್ನ ಪತ್ನಿ ಸುಮಾರು 35 ವರ್ಷಗಳ ಕಾಲ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ವಿದ್ಯುತ್ ನಿಗಮದಲ್ಲಿ ಇಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಿಕಲ್ ಇಂಜಿನಿಯರ್ಗಳ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಿ ಈಗ ನಿವೃತ್ತಿ ಪಡೆದುಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಸುಮಾರು 3 ವರ್ಷಗಳ ಹಿಂದೆ ನಾನು, ಉಮಾ ಕಾತ್ಯಾಯಿನಿ ಮತ್ತು ಶಂಕರ್ ಪ್ರಸಾದ್ ನಾವುಗಳು ಸೇರ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಗ್ರಾಮೀಣ ವಿಭಾಗದ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿಗೆ ಅನುಕೂಲ ಆಗುವ ನಿಟ್ಟಿನಲ್ಲಿ ನನ್ನ ತಂದೆಯವರಾದ ಶ್ರೀಪತಿರಾವ್ ಮತ್ತು ನನ್ನ ಮಾವನವರಾದ GH ವೀರಭದ್ರಪ್ಪ ಇವರ ಹೆಸರಿನಲ್ಲಿ GHVS ಚಾರಿಟೇಬಲ್ ಎಜುಕೇಷನಲ್ ಟ್ರಸ್ಟ್ ಅನ್ನೋ ಒಂದು ಟ್ರಸ್ಟ್ನ ಗುಬ್ಬಿಯನ್ನು ಕೇಂದ್ರ ಕಚೇರಿ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಪ್ರಾರಂಭ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಈ ಟ್ರಸ್ಟ್ನ ವತಿಯಿಂದ ಕಳೆದ ಸುಮಾರು 3 ವರ್ಷಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಗುಬ್ಬಿ ಹಾಗೂ ಗುಬ್ಬಿಯ ಸುತ್ತಮುತ್ತಲಿನ ಗ್ರಾಮೀಣ ಸರ್ಕಾರಿ ಶಾಲೆಗಳನ್ನು ನಾವು ಭೇಟಿ ಮಾಡಿ ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ ಶಾಲೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೇನು ಕುಂದುಕೊರತೆ ಇದೆ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಅಭ್ಯಾಸ ಮಾಡಿ, ಆದ್ಯತೆಯ ಮೇಲೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಟ್ರಸ್ಟ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಸೀಮಿತ ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಶಕ್ತಿಯ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಪಠ್ಯಪುಸ್ತಕಗಳಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಪೀಠೋಪಕರಣಗಳಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಆಟೋಪಕರಣಗಳಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಕೆಲವು ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿಗೆ ಟ್ಯೂಷನ್ಗಾಗಿ ಫೀಸಿನ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಈ ಥರದ ಹಲವಾರು ಕೆಲಸಗಳನ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಬಂದಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಇಷ್ಟೇ ಅಲ್ಲದೆ ನಾವು ಕಳೆದ 2 ವರ್ಷಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಗುಬ್ಬಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಗ್ರಾಮೀಣ ಭಾಗದ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿಗೆ ಅನುಕೂಲ ಆಗೋ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲವಾರು ಶೈಕ್ಷಣಿಕ ಕಾರ್ಯಾಗಾರಗಳನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಪರ್ಸನಾಲಿಟಿ ಡೆವಲಪ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಹೌ ಟು ಫೇಸ್ ಆನ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಹೌ ಟು ಪ್ಲ್ಯಾನ್ ಯುವರ್ ಸ್ಟಡೀಸ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು. ಈ ಥರ ನಾವು ಹೊರಗಿನಿಂದ ಫ್ಯಾಕಲ್ಟಿಗಳನ್ನು ಕರ್ಕೊಂಬಂದು ವರ್ಕ್ಶಾಪ್ಗಳನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಇಷ್ಟೇ ಅಲ್ಲದೆ ನಾವು ಕಳೆದ 3 ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ ಪ್ರತಿ ವರ್ಷ SSLC ಫಲಿತಾಂಶ ಬಂದ ನಂತರ ಜುಲೈ ತಿಂಗಳಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಗುಬ್ಬಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರತಿಭಾ ಪೋಷಕ್ ಅನ್ನುವಂಥ ಸಮಾರಂಭವನ್ನು ಆಯೋಜನೆ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ಆ ವರ್ಷದ SSLC ಪರೀಕ್ಷೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಅತಿ ಉತ್ತಮವಾದ ಅಂಕ ಗಳಿಸಿರತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಒಂದು 25ರಿಂದ 30 ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿಗೆ ಪ್ರೋತ್ಸಾಹಕರವಾಗಿ ಪ್ರಶಸ್ತಿ ಪತ್ರ ಮತ್ತು ನಗದು ಬಹುಮಾನವನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ಈ ವರ್ಷ ಕೂಡ ಇದನ್ನು ಈ ತಿಂಗಳು ಅಥವಾ ಹೋದ ತಿಂಗಳು ಮಾಡುವಂಥ ಒಂದು ಯೋಜನೆ ಇತ್ತು. ಆದರೆ ನಿಮಗೆಲ್ಲ ಗೊತ್ತಿರೋ ಹಾಗೆ ಈಗ ಈ ಕೊರೋನಾ ವೈರಸ್ ಹಾವಳಿಯಿಂದಾಗಿ ಎವ್ರಿಥಿಂಗ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಗಾನ್ ಔಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್. ಈಗ ಈ ಸಾಂಕ್ರಾಮಿಕ ಪಿಡುಗು ಎಲ್ಲೇ ಮಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಹರಡಿದೆ, ಎಷ್ಟರ ಮಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಸಾವು ನೋವಾಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ಎಷ್ಟರ ಮಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಚಿಕಿತ್ಸೆಗೆ ತೊಂದರೆ ಆಗ್ತಿದೆ, ಈ ಎಲ್ಲ ನಿಟ್ಟಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಕೂಡ ಇದನ್ನು ನಿಯಂತ್ರಣ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಹಲವಾರು ಬಾರಿ ಲಾಕ್ಡೌನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತವೆ. ಯಾಕಂದರೆ ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕ ಅಂತರವನ್ನು ಕಾಯ್ದುಕೊಳ್ಳುವಂಥದ್ದು ಬಹುಶಃ 50% ಇರೋಕ್ಕೆ ಪರಿಹಾರ ಅಂತ ಇವನು ತಜ್ಞರು ಕೂಡ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆ ನಿಟ್ಟಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಒಂದು ಕಡೆ ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಜನ ಸೇರುವಂಥ ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮವನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗದಿರುವಂಥ ಒಂದು ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿಗೆ ಬಂದು ನಿಂತಿದೆ. ಆದರೆ ಶಾಲೆಗಳನ್ನು ಯಾವತ್ತು ಪ್ರಾರಂಭ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನುವಂಥ ಒಂದು ನಿಗದಿತ ಸಮಯ ಕೂಡ ಕ್ಯಾಲ್ಕುಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗ್ತಾಯಿಲ್ಲ ಸರ್ಕಾರಕ್ಕೆ. ಇಂಥ ಸಮಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ತುಂಬ ಮುಂದಾಲೋಚನೆಯಿಂದ ಈಗ ಇರುವಂಥ ಒಂದು ತಾಂತ್ರಿಕತೆಯನ್ನು ಉಪಯೋಗ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಡಿಜಿಟಲ್ ಮಾಧ್ಯಮದ ಮೂಲಕ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಮನೆಯಲ್ಲೇ ಕೂತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ಪಡೆಯುವಂಥ ಒಂದು ಆನ್ಲೈನ್ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಚಿಂತನೆಯನ್ನು ಸುಮಾರಿಗೆ 2 ತಿಂಗಳಿನಿಂದಲೂ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಆದರೆ ಈ ಆನ್ಲೈನ್ ತರಗತಿಗಳನ್ನ ಉಪಯೋಗ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಳ್ಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅದರದ್ದೇ ಆದ ಇತಿಮಿತಿಗಳಿದ್ದಾವೆ. ಯಾಕಂದರೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಹಳ್ಳಿಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂಟರ್ನೆಟ್ ಸೌಲಭ್ಯ ಇಲ್ಲದೇ ಇರಬಹುದು, ಅಥವಾ ಎಲ್ಲ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿಗೆ ಮನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ 2-3 ಜನ ಇದ್ದರೆ 3 ಮೊಬೈಲು ಸ್ಮಾರ್ಟ್ಫೋನ್ಗಳನ್ನು ತೆಕ್ಕೊಂಡು ವಿದ್ಯಾಭ್ಯಾಸವನ್ನು ಮುಂದುವರಿಸುವಂಥ ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಸದೃಢತೆ ಇಲ್ಲದೇ ಇರಬಹುದು. ಸೊ ಇದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಗಮನಿಸಿದಾಗ ಎಷ್ಟರ ಮಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಆನ್ಲೈನ್ ಎಜುಕೇಷನ್ನು ಉಪಯೋಗ ಆಗತ್ತೆ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಹೇಳಕ್ಕೆ ಬರಲ್ಲ. ಆದರೆ ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಸ್ಥಿತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಶಾಲೆಗಳ ಪ್ರಾರಂಭನೆ ಅನಿಶ್ಚಿತವಾಗಿರಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಬಹುಶಃ ಸರ್ಕಾರಕ್ಕೆ ಇರುವುದು ಇದೊಂದೇ ದಾರಿ. ಎರಡನೇದಾಗಿ, ಈ ತರಹದ ಒಂದು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಾರ್ಡಿನರಿ ಸಿಚುವೇಶನ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ, ಈ ಥರದ ಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಬಹುಶಃ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ನನಗೀಗ 58 ವರ್ಷ, ನಾನು ಹುಟ್ಟಿದಾಗಿಂದಂತೂ ಈ ಥರದ ಸ್ಥಿತಿನ ನಾನು ಯಾವತ್ತೂ ನೋಡೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. 1920ನೇ ಇಸ್ವಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಪ್ಯಾನಿಷ್ ಫ್ಲೂ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ರೋಗ ಬಂದಿತ್ತು. ಆ ಸಮಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಮತ್ತು 1944-45ನೇ ಇಸ್ವಿಯಲ್ಲಿ 2ನೇ ಮಹಾಯುದ್ಧ ನಡೆದಾಗ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಮಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಈ ಥರದ ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಇದ್ದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಬಟ್ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಹೇಳೋ ಪ್ರಕಾರ ಈಗಿರುವಂಥ ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಅದಕ್ಕಿಂತಲೂ ಘೋರವಾಗಿದೆ. ಆದ್ದರಿಂದ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದನ್ನು ಸರ್ಕಾರವೇ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಆಸೆ ಪಡೋದು ಕೂಡ ತಪ್ಪು. ಯಾಕಂದರೆ ಭಾರತ ಒಂದು 130 ಕೋಟಿ ಜನ ಇರತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಅಗಾಧವಾದ ಜನಶಕ್ತಿಯ ದೇಶ. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದನ್ನು ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯವಾಗದೇ ಇರ್ಬೋದು. ಅಂಥ ಸಮಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಜ್ಞಾವಂತ ನಾಗರಿಕರಾದ ನಾವುಗಳು ಕೂಡ ಸರ್ಕಾರಕ್ಕೆ ಕೈ ಜೋಡಿಸಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಕೈಲಾದಷ್ಟು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಗಳನ್ನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದು ನನ್ನ ಒಂದು ಭಾವನೆ. ಈ ನಿಟ್ಟಿನಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮ GHVS ಟ್ರಸ್ಟ್ನಿಂದ ಆನ್ಲೈನ್ ಶಾಲೆಗಳನ್ನು ಯಾಕೆ ಮಾಡಬಾರ್ದು ಅನ್ನೋವಂಥ ಪ್ರಸ್ತಾಪವನ್ನು SP ಮೇಷ್ಟ್ರು ಸುಮಾರು ಒಂದು 2 ತಿಂಗಳ ಹಿಂದೆ ನನ್ನ ಮತ್ತು ನನ್ನ ಪತ್ನಿಯವರ ಮುಂದೆ ಪ್ರಸ್ತಾಪ ಮಾಡಿದರು. ನನಗೂ ಅನ್ನಿಸ್ತು, ನಿಜವಾಗಿಯೂ ತುಂಬ ಒಳ್ಳೆಯ ಪ್ರಸ್ತಾಪ ಇದು. ಯಾಕಂದರೆ ಗ್ರಾಮೀಣ ಪ್ರದೇಶದ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ಈ ಆನ್ಲೈನ್ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಏನು ಅನ್ನೋದು ಇಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೂ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಬಹುಶಃ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು ಅಥವಾ ದೊಡ್ಡ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಊರುಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕಂಪ್ಯೂಟರ್ ಜ್ಞಾನ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ಅವರು ಆನ್ಲೈನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಮುಂಚೆನೇ ಕೆಲವಾರು ಪಾಠ ಪ್ರವಚನಗಳನ್ನು ನೋಡಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಒಂದು ಅನುಭವ ಇರ್ಬೋದು. ಆದರೆ ಗ್ರಾಮೀಣ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ಇದು ಹೊಸ್ತು. ಆದ್ದರಿಂದ ಇದನ್ನು ಯಾಕೆ ಮಾಡಬಾರ್ದು ಅಂತ SP ಮೇಷ್ಟ್ರು ಕೇಳಿದಾಗ ನಾನು ಮತ್ತು ಉಮಾ ಕಾತ್ಯಾನಿಯವರು ತುಂಬ ಹೃದಯದಿಂದ ಅದನ್ನು ಸಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಇದರಿಂದಾಗಿ ಶಂಕರ್ ಪ್ರಸಾದ್ ಅವರು ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಆನ್ಲೈನ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ಗಳನ್ನು ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಬಹುಶಃ 2 ತಿಂಗಳಾಗ್ತಾ ಬಂತು. ಇಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೆ ಸುಮಾರು 100-150 ವಿಡಿಯೋಗಳನ್ನು ಅವರು ಬಿಡುಗಡೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಪ್ರತಿದಿನ ಸುಮಾರು 2 ವಿಡಿಯೋನ ಅವರು ಬಿಡುಗಡೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆದರೆ ಈ ಆನ್ಲೈನ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಗೆ 40 ನಿಮಿಷದ ಒಂದು ಕ್ಲಾಸನ್ನು ನಡೆಸಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಅವರು ಬಹುಶಃ 2-2.5 ಗಂಟೆಗಳ ಕಾಲ ಪ್ರಿಪರೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ಆ ಒಂದು ಆನ್ಲೈನ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ನ ಸಿಲೆಬಸ್ ಆ ದಿವಸ ಏನು ಹೇಳಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ತಯಾರಿ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ, ಅದನ್ನು ಚಿತ್ರೀಕರಣ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ, ಹಾಗೂ ಅದನ್ನು ಪ್ರಸಾರ ಯೋಗ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಎಡಿಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಅದನ್ನು ಪ್ರಸಾರಕ್ಕೆ ಕೊಡಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ದಿವಸಕ್ಕೆ 1 ಗಂಟೆಯ 2 ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂದರೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಸುಮಾರು 4-4.5 ಗಂಟೆಗಳ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಅದನ್ನು ಅವರು ತುಂಬ ಸಂತೋಷವಾಗಿ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಒಪ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರು. ಕೊನೆಗೆ ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಸ್ಥಿತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬ ಜನಗಳಿಗೆ ಉದ್ಯೋಗಗಳು ಹೋಗಿದೆ, ತುಂಬ ಜನಗಳಿಗೆ ಅವರ ಬಿಸ್ನೆಸ್ ನಡೀತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಜನಗಳ ಕೈಯಲ್ಲಿ ದುಡ್ಡಿನ ಕೊರತೆ ಇದೆ. ಆದ್ದರಿಂದ ಪೋಷಕರು ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಫೀಸ್ ಕಟ್ಟೋದು ಕಷ್ಟ ಅನ್ನೋ ಸ್ಥಿತಿಯಲ್ಲಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಈ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ಗಳನ್ನ ಆನ್ಲೈನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಉಚಿತವಾಗಿ ಯಾಕೆ ಮಾಡಬಾರ್ದು ಅಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಶಂಕರ್ ಪ್ರಸಾದ್ ಅವರು ನನ್ನ ಹತ್ರ ಪ್ರಸ್ತಾಪ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ನಾನು ಇದಕ್ಕೇನೋ ಒಪ್ಕೊಂಡೆ. ಆದರೆ ಉಚಿತವಾಗಿ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂದರೂ ಕೂಡ ಆ ಶೂಟಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡೋದು, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ತಯಾರಿ ಮಾಡೋದು, ಅದನ್ನು ಎಡಿಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದು, ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ತುಂಬ ಕೆಲಸಗಳಿರ್ತವೆ. ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಇವರಿಗೆ ಕೆಲವು ಫೋಟೋಗ್ರಾಫರ್ಗಳ ಸಹಾಯನೂ ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ಒಂದು ಹೊಸ ಕ್ಯಾಮರಾನೂ ಕೊಂಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ವಿ. ಕೊನೆಗೆ ನಾವು ತೀರ್ಮಾನ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ, ಆಯಿತು ಇದೇನು ಪ್ರತಿ ವರ್ಷ ನಡೆಯುವಂಥ ಒಂದು ಘಟನೆ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಯಾಕೋ ದೇಶದ ಮೇಲೆ ಈ ಥರದ ಒಂದು ಕಾರ್ಮೋಡ ಈಗ ಬಂದಿದೆ, ಇದು ಬಹುಶಃ ಇನ್ನು 1 ವರ್ಷ ಅಥವಾ 1.5 ವರ್ಷದಲ್ಲಿ ಸಂಪೂರ್ಣವಾಗಿ ನಿವಾರಣೆ ಆಗ್ಬೋದು. ಅಲ್ಲಿಯವರೆಗೂ ನಮ್ಮ ಸ್ವಂತ ದುಡ್ಡಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಇದನ್ನು ಯಾಕೆ ಮಾಡಬಾರ್ದು ಟ್ರಸ್ಟ್ನಿಂದ ಅನ್ನೋ ಒಂದು ನಿರ್ಧಾರ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ಶಂಕರ್ ಪ್ರಸಾದ್ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಈ ಆನ್ಲೈನ್ ತರಗತಿ ನಡೆಸಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಏನೇನು ಖರ್ಚು ಬರುತ್ತೋ ಅದನ್ನು ಸಂಪೂರ್ಣವಾಗಿ GHVS ಟ್ರಸ್ಟ್ನಿಂದ ನಾವು ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ, ನೀವು ಮುಂದುವರಿರಿ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಸಮ್ಮತಿ ಕೊಟ್ವಿ. ಅದ್ರ ಪ್ರಕಾರ ಅವರು ಅತ್ಯಂತ ನಿಷ್ಠೆಯಿಂದ ಈಗ ಸುಮಾರು 2 ತಿಂಗಳಿನಿಂದ ನೀವೇ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ. ನಿಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಬಹಳ ಜನ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳು ಅವರ ಆನ್ಲೈನ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ವಿಡಿಯೋಗಳನ್ನು ನೋಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ, ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಸಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ನ. ಸೊ ಇದನ್ನು ಈ ಶೈಕ್ಷಣಿಕ ವರ್ಷ ಮುಗಿಯುವವರೆಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಶಂಕರ್ ಪ್ರಸಾದ್ ಅವರು ಮುಂದುವರಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ. ಇದು ಸಂಪೂರ್ಣವಾಗಿ ಉಚಿತವಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಬರುವ ಎಲ್ಲ ಖರ್ಚುಗಳನ್ನು GHVS ಟ್ರಸ್ಟೇ ನೋಡ್ಕೊಳ್ತದೆ. ನಾನು ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ಹೇಳೋದು ಒಂದೇ, ಇದು ಒಂದು ಅಸಾಧಾರಣವಾದ ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಈಗ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿದೆ. ನಿಮಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಇದು ಹೊಸ್ತು. ಆದರೆ ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಧೃತಿಗೆಡಬೇಡಿ. ನೀವು ಶಾಲೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂತು ಮೇಷ್ಟ್ರ ಮುಂದೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಬರೋ ಡೌಟ್ಗಳನ್ನು ಕೇಳುವಂಥ ಒಂದು ಅವಕಾಶ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಮಗೆ ಪ್ರತಿದಿನ ಸಿಗದೇ ಇರಬಹುದು. ಆದರೆ ಈ ವಿಡಿಯೋಗಳನ್ನು ನೋಡಿ ನಿಮಗೇನಾದರೂ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಿದರೆ 2ನೇ ಸಾರಿ ನೋಡಿ. ಇನ್ನೂ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದರೆ ಶಂಕರ್ ಪ್ರಸಾದ್ ಅವ್ರ ಮನೆಯಲ್ಲೇ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ಒಬ್ಬೊಬ್ಬರೇ ಬಂದು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಒಂದು ಡೌಟ್ಸ್ ಏನಿದೆ ಅದನ್ನು ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಮುಂದುವರಿರಿ. ಇದು ನನ್ನ ಸಲಹೆ ನಿಮಗೆ. ಸೊ ನಮ್ಮ GHVS ಟ್ರಸ್ಟ್ನ ವತಿಯಿಂದ ನಾನು ನಿಮಗೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಮಾಡೋ ಹಾರೈಕೆ ಒಂದೇ, ಅತ್ಯಂತ ಆಸಕ್ತಿಯಿಂದ ಈ ಎಲ್ಲ ಪಾಠಗಳನ್ನು ನೀವು ಪ್ರತಿದಿನ ರಿಲೀಸ್ ಮಾಡುವಂಥ ವಿಡಿಯೋಗಳನ್ನು ನೋಡಿ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಸಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ನ ಕಲಿತ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಓದಿ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಅತ್ಯಂತ ಉತ್ತಮ ಅಂಕಗಳನ್ನು ಗಳಿಸಿ ಈ ಅಸಾಧಾರಣ ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿಯನ್ನು ನಾವು ಗೆಲ್ತೀವಿ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಸಾಬೀತು ಮಾಡಿ ತೋರಿಸಿ. ಇದರಿಂದ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಪೋಷಕರಿಗೂ ಸಹ ತುಂಬ ಸಂತೋಷ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಎಲ್ಲ ಪೋಷಕರು ಹೆಚ್ಚಿನವರು ಬಹುಶಃ ಕಷ್ಟದಲ್ಲಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಕೃಷಿ ಚಟುವಟಿಕೆಗಳಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಯಾವುದೇ ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಚಟುವಟಿಕೆ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಯಾವುದೇ ಬಿಸ್ನೆಸ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅಥವಾ ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರೈವೇಟ್ ಇಂಡಸ್ಟ್ರಿ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಇವತ್ತು ನಡೀತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಆದ್ದರಿಂದ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಪೋಷಕರ ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಮೂಲ ಕೂಡ ಮುಂಚೆ ಇದ್ದಷ್ಟು ಸದೃಢವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಆದ್ದರಿಂದ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಜವಾಬ್ದಾರಿ ಅತ್ಯಂತ ಒಳ್ಳೆಯ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಓದಿ ಅವರು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮೇಲೆ ಇಟ್ಟಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಒಂದು ಭರವಸೆಯನ್ನು ಹುಸಿ ಮಾಡದೇ ಇರುವಂತೆ ನೀವು ಉತ್ತಮ ಅಂಕಗಳನ್ನು ಗಳಿಸಿ ಉತ್ತೀರ್ಣರಾಗುವಂಥದ್ದು. ನಾನು ಕೊನೆಯದಾಗಿ ಮತ್ತೊಮ್ಮೆ ಈ ಇಡೀ ಅಭಿಯಾನದ ಹಿಂದೆ ಇರುವಂತಹ ಕಾರ್ಯಶಕ್ತಿ, ಡ್ರೈವಿಂಗ್ ಫೋರ್ಸ್ ಶಂಕರ್ ಪ್ರಸಾದ್ SP ಮೇಷ್ಟ್ರಿಗೆ ನೀವು ಮಾಡ್ತಿರೋ ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯ ತುಂಬ ಶ್ಲಾಘನೀಯ. ನಿಮಗೆ ಒಳ್ಳೆಯದಾಗಲಿ ಅಂತ ಹಾರೈಸಿ ನಿಮಗೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಒಳ್ಳೆಯದಾಗಲಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ.
Welcome everybody to Sangam Tutorials SP Gubi online classes for NCERTs and Cbse 10th standard classes for mathematics and science. So today I am very happy that we are starting a new chapter in mathematics syllabus, that is quadratic equations. So which follows that is polynomials chapter. So according to the information what until we have got now, the entire polynomials chapter is being deleted from the syllabus of state syllabus of Karnataka. So but the only advantage is you got the knowledge of polynomials, zeros of polynomials, value of a polynomial, how they are related, how the coefficients are related. So you have got a very good knowledge about it. So don't feel that oh we wasted a lot of time in that. Nothing is wasted. You have got the knowledge of it, right? So that knowledge of polynomials, based on that we are developing the chapter that is quadratic equations. So it's a very important chapter in the entire mathematics syllabus. So you can see quadratic equations in all the chapters, maybe in the chapter of sequences while solving problems on arithmetic progressions. In an arithmetic progressions, a value was given, d value was given, and sum of all the terms were given to certain number of terms, and you were asked to find out the value of n. So while solving those problems we came across quadratic equations. So you got n value as two values, one is positive, another is negative. So we ignored the negative value and we took the positive value. I hope you remember. So these quadratic equations, it is not only applicable in only mathematics, it is applicable to all other branches of mathematics also, and also in real life situations. So therefore this chapter is very important. So in most of the problems we solve, after converting the given statement into a equation, and while solving step by step we will reach a quadratic equation where you have to solve it to reach to the required solution. So at that instances we need the knowledge of how to solve a quadratic equation. So in this particular chapter we are going with the different methods of solving quadratic equations. So maybe we are going to come across one particular method is deleted according to the that is the syllabus what you have got. So that is the method of completing the square. So that method is taken out of the syllabus. This is for Karnataka state syllabus I am speaking. So other method is, one is the sum and product method. Usually what we do, you know it, you have done it from last 2 years in your mathematics syllabus. It was in 8th standard as well as it is in 9th standard also. So the same method we are going to do it once again here. And the second method is the very important one, that is the formula method. So in this method we are going to I'm going to derive the formula for you. I am going to give a formula for you how to solve quadratic equations. That's the second method. And the third method is the graphical method, which is still not mentioned again in your textbook. And the fourth method was the method of completing the square, which is already removed. So in your syllabus you have just two methods of solving quadratic equations. So one is by sum and product method, that is SP method. Another one is that is the formula method. So in both the types of problems you are going to come across general numerical problems, as well as you are going to come across 4 marks or 3 marks application problems, which are statement problems, which are very important for your examination. So one particular question for 3 marks will be asked in your examination, compulsory. So this chapter plays a very important role. It is totally logically based chapter. So in real life situations, wherever we come across quadratic equations, those problems have been designed and it is kept in your textbook. So we are going to solve many problems on this, right? So before entering into the chapter, first we have to understand what is a quadratic equation, what quadratic means, what equation means, how it is totally different from a linear equation, what you have learnt in your 8th standard class, how it is different from the particular equation which is having 2 variables. So all these things we will learn in today's session. So at the end of this session you will be conceptually strong in learning what is a quadratic equation. So in this session, that is our target. I hope you will listen to me very carefully. You are going to watch the video very carefully so that you understand the fundamentals of this, right? So the name of the chapter is quadratic equations. We are going to deal with certain equations which are called quadratic. So quadratic in the sense, according to the Latin name, it is quadratum. It is derived from the Latin word, it is quadratum. Quadratum. Quadratic means Latin word. The Latin version of quadratic is quadratum. That means a squared one. That means a squared one. Something which is square. That's called a quadratum. So it is a squared one. Something which is squared is called as quadratum. So here quadratum is quadratic equation. So an equation which is squared. An equation which is squared means, in what sense we have to take this? Equation means in any algebraic expression or any algebraic expression which is equated to another algebraic expression, or an algebraic expression which is equated to 0, it is called an equation. What is the general definition for an equation? Means any algebraic expression if it is equated to another algebraic expression, or if an algebraic expression is equated to 0, then we call it as an equation. For example, 3x plus 5 is an algebraic expression. It is equated to 9x, right? This is an algebraic expression equated to another algebraic expression. Or in another chance, this is the first chance. Other chance is if some other algebraic expression is equated to 0, then it is called an equation. So in both the cases, these are called as equations. These are called as equations. So very simple. So what is a quadratic equation? Quadratic means quadratum, which is squared one. Equation means an algebraic expression equated to another algebraic expression, or an algebraic expression equated to 0 is called as an equation. So here, when we combine these two words, we get a different meaning. How to get to that meaning? That's very, very important here. For that, I will take an illustration. For example, I will take, imagine a non-zero whole number. You have to do it. What I am telling you, you have to do this. Imagine a non-zero whole number. Whole number starts from 0. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it goes until infinity. I am telling you to imagine a non-zero whole number. There are many whole numbers. Many infinite whole numbers are there. So among those whole numbers you have to imagine a number. Add 7 to that. Add 7 to that number and equate that to 12. So as there are infinite whole numbers, I am going to guess that particular whole number as x or y or z or any alpha numeral. An alpha numeral is a term which represents a number, that's all, right? So let us imagine a number. So let the whole number be, let the non-zero whole number be x. So I told you to add 7 to that. So let us add it. So when 7 is added, it becomes x plus 7, and equate that to 12. I told you to equate that to 12. Equate that to 12 means you have to write it as equal to 12. So this is an equation we have got. So here in this equation particularly, you have to observe the variable. So who is the variable here? Which is the variable? 7 is a constant, 12 is a constant, but x can take any whole number other than 0. X can become any whole number other than 0, because according to the condition, x is the number what you have to guess is a whole number which is non-zero. So therefore x cannot be 0 here. So therefore x will be some number which represents some number. Therefore x will be called as the variable, and we should observe the degree of the variable here. So if you don't find any number in the power of a number, then it is understood that its power is 1. So here the degree of the variable is 1. So degree of variable is 1. So therefore, in an equation, you have an equation. In that equation, if a variable has degree 1, then it is called a linear equation. Linear means it is 1, right? So therefore it is a linear equation. So we can solve this linear equation. So x plus 7 is equal to 12. If you want to solve it, you have to make the variable independent of all other terms. So transpose this plus 7 to RHS, so it becomes x is equal to 12 minus 7. So x is equal to 12 minus 7 is 5. So value of x is 5. That's 5 is a non-zero whole number, you have got it here. So here x is 5 is the solution of this equation, we can call it. 5 is the solution of this equation, or 5 is called the root of this equation. So you have to start using the word here, it is root. So here when we substitute this 5 in the place of x, if we find that 5 plus 7 is equal to 12. So if this equation has to be satisfied, that is, if you want to make this equation equal to LHS is equal to RHS, you have to put a number here such that the LHS becomes equal to RHS. That satisfies the condition by substituting 5 here, that is 5 plus 7 is equal to 12. So therefore the value of x which satisfies the equation, that is which makes LHS equal to RHS, then that is called the root of this equation. So other than 5, nobody can satisfy the equation here. If you put 6, it is 13. If you put 10, it is 17. If you put 1, it becomes 6. Other than 5, nobody can satisfy this equation. So therefore 5 is called the root of this equation. 5 is called the root of this equation. So how many roots are there? There is only one root for a linear equation. So how we can guess that an equation has how many roots? Very simple criteria. Look at the variable, look at its power. If the power of the variable is 1, then that equation has one root. If the power of that variable is 2, then what happens? Then that particular equation has 2 roots in that. So knowing this is very important, because this is applied in various branches of mathematics and in real life situations. So let us get into second one. Let us imagine a non-zero whole number again, like this what we solved here. So one more thing, as this linear equation has only one root, when we draw a graph for this linear equation, we are going to get a straight line on the graph. That is, graphically, when you start giving values for x, right, on the truth table what you are going to get. So using that, when you draw a graph for this, the graph of a linear equation is always a straight line. For example, if this is the graph sheet, right, this is x-axis, you know this very well, you have done it is in polynomials. So if this is the graph sheet for the linear equation, always you get a straight line like this. Not for this I am particularly telling you. Usually you get a straight line for a linear equation when you solve it graphically. Okay. Now let us take another non-zero whole number. Let us take another non-zero whole number. Right. I hope you imagine. Add 7 to that. Add 7 to that. Multiply by the same whole number to the sum of 7 and the number. Once again I will repeat. Imagine a non-zero whole number, add 5 to that and multiply the sum of that by the whole number again and equate that to 30. Imagine this, what I am telling you, please imagine this. So let the non-zero whole number be x. As usual we will guess it. Add 7 to that, add 5 to that. Okay, I am going to add 5 to that. Multiply the sum of the numbers by the same whole number, that is x, and equate that to 30. This is how the equation is formed. Diagrammatically, the equation is formed. So we have successfully converted English into mathematics. So imagine a non-zero whole number, add 5 to that, multiply by the same whole number to the sum of the two numbers and equate that to 30. We have done it, right? So can you tell me whether this is a linear equation or some other equation? See here, without opening the brackets, by multiplying the terms inside the bracket by the term which is outside, don't guess it. Your guessing will go wrong, right? So please open the brackets and let's see. X into x is x square, x into 5 is plus 5x is equal to 30. So when we see this equation, it has variable. Which is the variable? X is the variable. What is the highest degree of the variable? So here we can see at that, here the degree of the variable here is 1 and the degree of the same variable which is here is 2. So while guessing the type of equation, you have to look at the variable. If the same variable repeats at two or more different places, look at the degree of the variable which is having the highest degree. So look at the highest degree of the variable. So here this variable x, here also we have the variable x, but here it has degree 1 and here it has degree 2 here. So therefore, depending upon the highest degree of the variable which is involved in the equation, we decide the nature of the equation. So here this equation is called as a quadratic equation because the highest degree of the variable involved is 2, therefore it is a quadratic equation. This is how we identify quadratic equations, right? So for example, here we can write infinite number of quadratic equations like this. Infinite number of quadratic equations by taking different variables, different constants, by combining them in different patterns, we can frame n number of quadratic equations, right? So here this is a quadratic equation. So in this quadratic equation, according to the characteristics what I can say you here we have the same variable. We do not have different variables. For example, x square plus 5y is not possible in a quadratic equation, right? So that becomes a different type of quadratic equation. So if an equation has to become a quadratic equation, then it should have the same variable. It should have the same variable. So here also we have x, here also we have x, same variable, and the highest degree of the variable should be equal to 2 only. Therefore, these type of equations are called as quadratic equations. So now, how many roots are there for a quadratic equation? So usually, when we solve these type of quadratic equations, we are going to get compulsory 2 roots. Compulsory 2 roots, right? Those 2 roots may be positive and positive, negative and negative, positive and negative, negative and positive, or they may be, along with these things, they may be both rational numbers, one rational and one irrational, both irrationals, or both equal, or one equal to 0 and another rational, one equal to 0 another irrational. So these are all the different possibilities for a quadratic equation to get its roots. So the roots of a quadratic equation depends upon certain conditions where I am going to discuss in the coming sessions. So they are very important. I will discuss with the examples. So just for at this moment, keep it in your mind that a linear equation has only one root, where a quadratic equation has 2 roots. This is compulsory. You have to remember this, right? So now, sir, what happens when we draw or try to solve a quadratic equation graphically? When we solve a quadratic equation graphically, what type of geometrical figure we are going to get? So here we got a geometry. When we solve a linear equation geometrically, graphically, we are going to get a straight line. So when we solve a quadratic equation graphically, what we are going to get? So here, when you solve a quadratic equation graphically, you are going to get a parabola. Remember this, you are going to get a parabola. This is the Cartesian system. This is x dash, x, y and y dash. So you are going to get a parabola like this, maybe like this, maybe inverted parabolas, maybe like this, depending upon a quadratic equation, but you will get a parabola. 100% you are going to get a parabola. Parabola may be differently situated on a graph sheet, but compulsory you are going to get a parabola when you solve a quadratic equation graphically, right? So very important. A quadratic equation has a same variable in its equation. A quadratic equation has to be seen through when a variable has the highest degree as 2 only. So if a quadratic equation has highest degree as 2, then it is a quadratic equation. And then third point is that a quadratic equation has 2 roots, and when a quadratic equation is solved graphically, we get a parabola, a parabolic curve we are going to get. So regarding parabolas, hyperbolas, you are going to study in your higher classes, right? So now let us see how this quadratic equation is related to polynomials. So many are feeling very happy that the entire chapter is deleted. Sir, polynomials chapter is not there, our load is reduced. Yes, please, you are in a loss. You people who are seeing the online classes, you are lucky because you have understood polynomials, you have written worksheets, you have done test on it, you are well versed in that. Now I will connect polynomials with quadratic equations. See, this polynomials knowledge is very important here. Now, regarding the types of polynomials, what we have learnt, we have come across a type of polynomial called a quadratic polynomial. I hope you remember quadratic polynomial. Types of polynomials: linear polynomial, quadratic polynomial, cubic polynomial, biquadratic polynomial, constant polynomial, zero polynomial. So many polynomials you have come across. Just I am telling you to pick up the concept of quadratic polynomials from your mind. I hope you remember that. So any polynomial p of x which is in the form of ax square plus bx plus c is called a quadratic polynomial. I hope you remember this. This is a quadratic polynomial. This is the standard form of a quadratic polynomial, right? Now, if p of x is equal to 0, if p of x is equal to 0, then we call it as the 0 of this polynomial. If you substitute, if the polynomial p of x becomes equal to 0, then it is called a 0 polynomial. You know that. You have studied in your polynomials chapter. So, right? So, if p of x is equal to 0, then this one, ax square plus bx plus c equal to, as p of x is 0, this entire polynomial will be equated to 0, right? So, any quadratic polynomial where p of x is equal to 0, then the quadratic polynomial is going to become a quadratic equation, because you have expressed this quadratic polynomial equal to 0. As I told you how a expression becomes equal to 0. So this entire expression has become equal to 0, and this expression is a quadratic polynomial. If a quadratic polynomial is equated to 0, then it is called a quadratic equation. Yes, this is one of the definition for quadratic equations. So what is a quadratic equation? Sir, I have a quadratic polynomial. So p of x is equal to ax square plus bx plus c. That's I have a quadratic polynomial, sir, and I have equated that quadratic polynomial to 0 by making p of x is equal to 0. So now you don't have a quadratic polynomial, but you have a quadratic equation. So here you can see ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0 is a quadratic equation, but here it was quadratic polynomial. So this is the major difference between a quadratic polynomial and a quadratic equation. So in simple words, tell us what is a quadratic equation. When a quadratic polynomial is equated to 0, then it is a quadratic equation. Enjoy it. This is very simple. So we need a well-defined definition for quadratic equation. Okay, no problem. Very simple. Ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0. we will take this equation. An equation which is already equal to 0, therefore I can call it as an equation. An equation involving a variable, with degree 2 is called a quadratic equation. Very simple. An equation involving a variable with degree 2 is called a quadratic equation. So here ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0 becomes a quadratic equation. I hope you got this. So what is a quadratic equation here? If a quadratic polynomial is equated to 0, then it is a quadratic equation. If an equation involving a variable in degree 2, then it is called a quadratic equation. So here a, b and c are called as constants. Here a, b and c are called constants. They can take any values. They can be natural numbers, they can be whole numbers, conditions apply. They can be rational numbers, they can be totally irrational numbers, and totally they can be real numbers. But on one condition, a should not become equal to 0. That's the only condition. A should not become equal to 0. So why? See here, in ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0, quadratic equation, we can find the variable with degree 2, therefore it is a quadratic equation. We have announced it. Now, the coefficient of x square is a. As I told you, a, b and c are real numbers. 0 is also a real number. Sir, can I substitute 0 in place of a? What happens if I substitute 0 in place of a? See, you can check it. 0 into x square is 0. This entire term vanishes. Remaining thing is bx plus c. So it's an equation. These two terms equal to 0. Here the variable has degree 1. Therefore, if a is equal to 0 in a quadratic equation, then the quadratic equation gets converted into a linear equation. So therefore, we say that a should not be equal to 0. So ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0 is also called the standard form of a quadratic equation, where a, b and c are real numbers. B can take any value. It can take 0, no problem at all. It can take 0. C can become 0, no problem at all. But a should not be equal to 0. If a becomes 0, then it loses the title of quadratic equation and gets converted into a linear equation, where we cannot call it as a quadratic equation again. So, an equation involving a variable with degree 2, where a, b and c are constants, a is not equal to 0, right, and x is the variable, is called a quadratic equation, right. So in this case, a should not be equal to 0 and c is called the real constant. Why we call c as real constant? Very simple. A has coefficient as x square, b has coefficient as x, c doesn't have any coefficients, it doesn't have any variable along with that. So therefore, c, as it is free from any type of variable, therefore c is called a real constant. This is also a constant, this is constant, this is also a constant. But when compared to these two, this is called the real constant. So once again, a quadratic equation involving a variable with degree 2 is called a quadratic equation. The standard form of the quadratic equation is ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0, where a, b and c are real numbers and a not equal to 0, and x is called the variable and c is called the real constant. So a quadratic equation should always be in a single variable. That means ax square plus by, it's not possible. It cannot be called as a quadratic equation. An equation has to become a quadratic equation. It should have the same type of variable involved. Right? I hope you got this. I hope you enjoyed this. You learned the concept. So in tomorrow's session, I will be going with still more depth into quadratic equations. Right? Still more theory is going to come. Right? Please be with the teacher. learn new things every day, right? Support the teachers during this particular time, right? And stay home, stay safe, and please keep learning. Thank you.